where has my foundation gone? Hey everyone, okay, so today I'm going to be talking you through and giving you some tips and tricks on how to keep your foundation on your face all day long. Because sometimes it can happen, you put your makeup on in the day, first thing in the morning, it looks great, you go about your day, a few hours later you have a quick look in the mirror and you realize that your foundation has quite literally vanished from your face. And it can happen, and I think it happens more often than not, that foundation either starts to move or it completely somehow disappears. So I'm going to talk you through some ways and how to stop that. So the very first one is that the product you're using, the foundation you're using, does not have enough pigment. Now, most foundations on the market contain anywhere between 10 to about 20% pigment. And the higher the percentage of pigment, the more sort of opaque the foundation is, the more coverage you're going to get. So check to make sure that you're using a product that has enough pigment in it. Things like, I recently did a review on the Rhodile foundation, which offers an immense amount of pigmentation. I would probably go so far as to say that that is at least 50% pigment. Our CMA cream foundation is 50% pigment. Those products are going to provide a great coverage and they're going to stay because the pigment is strong. Tinted moisturizer is going to have a lot less pigment. And so you kind of get the gist. Make sure that the product that you're using has enough pigment to cover the areas on your face that you need. If you need a lot of coverage, you're going to need a full coverage foundation. Rather than using a very lightweight foundation and just using multiple layers, it's much easier to get a full coverage one and you can shear it out. So the second reason that your foundation isn't lasting is the incompatibility issues you're having with your skincare and or your primer. Now, the easiest way to say this is that most people will be using a silicone-based foundation. Silicone and oil, as in a moisturizer that is oil-based, they don't mix. They will slide and your foundation will not set. The same goes for a water-based foundation with an oil-based moisturizer. It's not going to set. Oil and water don't mix. Silicone and oil, they don't like each other either. Oil and oil love each other. But trying to find an oil-based foundation now is not easy. But a lot of moisturizers are still oil-based. So what we're doing is we're putting our moisturizer on, which is an oil base. Then we're putting on a silicone primer and a silicone foundation. They're not compatible, so you need to look at the skincare that you're using. If you don't need a moisturizer in the day, don't use one. And then if you're using a silicone-based primer, make sure you use a silicone-based foundation. Those two are compatible and that will hold your makeup all day. I think that that's probably one of the biggest reasons for makeup mishaps is that you're using incompatible products. Oil and water just do not mix. Now, think about it. Yeah, that's really it, really. I've said it even from day one of my starting YouTube videos. Oil and water don't mix. And you need to be really specific. That's why brands who make a primer and a foundation, they make them compatible. They never make them incompatible. Hourglass do a really great liquid foundation. They also do an amazing primer. Both are silicone based and adhere to the skin. So the third reason that your foundation isn't lasting is because you're not setting it well. Now, setting a foundation can be done with either a brush or a powder puff. I prefer to use a powder puff because then you're pressing and locking powder into the skin to hold the foundation. The way you press is to push the product and roll. So never this, you push and roll and you use pressure all over the areas that you want to set it. Maybe it's just here or it's the whole face. Make sure you're pressing it into the skin. It will fill in pores and it will hold your makeup in place. That's why I use these. So another reason it's not setting and not lasting is because you're not using enough powder. We're quite scared of powder, and I don't really quite know why we're scared of powder, because powder makes for a beautiful finish to the face and in photographs. So you need to bear that in mind. But don't be scared of powder. The way you load up this, and I've done a video on it, is you place powder in your hand or on the puff, you kind of push it all in the middle, scrunch it up like this, give it a flick, the powder releases, and then you start to powder your face. Don't be scared of powder. If you are concerned about it under the eyes, then do everywhere bar the eyes, and whatever's left on, you can just gently tap around that area. So another reason is you're not using a setting spray. If you know that your makeup has a tendency to slide and move, then following the lock technique and then a setting spray is going to give you the longest amount of longevity to your foundation. You don't need to use a lot of these. Scandinavia is my favorite one. Just in an X and a T, and that is it. And your foundation will be set. And it's really that simple. Using a setting spray like this that really does set will make a massive difference. And those really are the key things you need to consider when looking at really making sure your foundation just doesn't decide that it's had enough of your face and fucks off for a bit of a break. That's what you need to do. So make sure that your foundation and primer and moisturizer are compatible. Look for compatible products, okay? For those of you women with really dry skin, you need an oil-based moisturizer. Go for an oil-based foundation. Bobbi Brown do a great oil-based foundation, so that's a good example. But try and stick with like to like. Don't forget to set your foundation with a powder puff and enough loose powder so that you're going to get that real locking in effect. And don't forget to set your makeup with a setting spray, because that's going to ensure the longevity and take away some of that powder residue that you kind of may not really love on your skin. And also check the pigmentation levels of your foundation. If you need full coverage, go for full coverage. I always think it's better to get a really full coverage foundation. You can always shear it down with primer or a bit of moisturizer that's compatible, whatever, rather than buying a really, really sheer one and just having to apply more and more layers. There you go. That's my tips. Aren't they golden? Don't forget to give this video a like and share it. I know you're not going to share it, but it would be nice if you did. And I'll see you all soon. Thanks so much. And leave all your comments right down there because I'll read them. Bye-bye.